This is the third episode documenting my trip to Australia, meeting some of Down Under's prominent woodworkers in late 1985 and into 1986. It starts with my arrival in Perth and my coach trip down southwestern Australia through the extensive gum forests to a town called Denmark. I met up with a woodworker who had previously visited me in my workshop in England, Leslie Wright. Greeted by a kookaburra bird perched on his veranda, Leslie welcomed me into the spacious timber house that he'd built for himself and his wife. He showed me one of his striking designs, a reclining chair. Now, during my stay, Leslie invited a friend of his over to dinner. This gentleman's family once owned a vast cattle station in the Northern Territory, comparable in size to the UK. I took a coach trip across the Nullarbor Desert, continuing my journey across this vast continent. I arrived in the Adelaide hills to stay with my friend Paul Eliseo, also a furniture designer I'd met on a scholarship in England 10 years previously. I promised him I'd visit him one day. Paul owned a hilltop farm where he too built his own home. He also dammed up a small valley and made a trout lake which I was eager to use. During my stay, I enjoyed the great outdoors with Paul and his family and played various sports with him.
During the month and a half or so that I've stayed at the Eliseo farm, I've used Paul's workshop to use both his lathe and also the equipment to make the canopy for my Mini Moke. When they told me they wanted about $400 for a second-hand canvas canopy and one that you couldn't even see out of, I decided it would be cheaper to make one myself, so I bought some corrugated plastic, some plywood and some acrylic sheet. And for about $40 or $50, probably less than that, I managed to build up this very basic but functional canopy for the Moke. I do tend to get a few strange looks, but should be okay for my travels.
One thing I noticed on Paul's farm was the number of burned trees. In 1983 there were devastating fires racing through South Australia and affecting the Adelaide hills. Paul had to put his ponies neck deep in the lake to save them. It was a very traumatic time. We in the UK are only just beginning to understand the ferocity at which fire engulfs.
During my stay at Paul Eliseo's farm, I decided to make a piece of furniture. Now, using Paul's equipment, his woodworking lathe, and some of the facilities at the South Australian College of Advanced Education, I decided to make one of my wood clocks. Okay, let's see how the ball fits. Not bad. Now, it's often the details of a design that matter, and in particular I want to get this relationship here just right. These pieces put together. The dial movement assembly. I'll just trim that. Probably need to put several coats on. And also oil the ball. Well, there we have it, the finished clock, my first piece of furniture in Australia, and made out of Australian blackwood. I wondered why they called it blackwood. Off to wash my hands. The man behind the pair of scissors is Hayden. How many sheep have you sheared, Hayden?
150,000.
150,000 odd. And we're doing about 100 or so today on the Eliseo's farm.
Which is the removal of all the useless bits of wool around the edge. As you can see, they're not much use to anyone. So they're removed, leaving a clean fleece. This is a manual compounding. On a big property they would have a hydraulic press.
Well, it keeps you fit, Paul.
Yeah, certainly. Beats a trampoline.
How often do you do this?
You shear once a year, and then you're supposed to crutch the ewes before they lamb, which is usually in February, March. You crutch them. But shearing is the once a year event.
Well, with about a dozen sheep or so to shear out of the 100 we've got here, I think I better go and lend a hand. Here you go, Paul. Got it? Right.
Whilst in South Australia, I visited the opal mines in Andamuka with Paul's brother-in-law, Alan.
Yeah, I pushed and let it go. I'm recording, Jeremy.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Jeremy?
Well, what I'm doing is taking the easy way out, because you and Paul have done all the hard work here. I mean, dug all the way down, about 30 foot, and you just handed me the pickaxe, and I'm about to make my million. Because,
So you're on the level.
I'm on the level. This is completely on the level now.
It was 46 degrees in the sun, but hey, back to woodworking. In my next episode, I'll be focusing on my meeting with the wildlife wood sculptor Peter Carnegie, who refers to himself as a feral woodworker, working with whatever woods he can find, including timber washed up on the seashore.
My background as a wildlife artist
features fairly strongly in the way I work, having spent a lot of time in wetland areas in particular studying bird anatomy and how they actually fit into the landscape with camouflage. For example, on this piece here, I'm using the speckled or the fungal pattern in the wood to reflect the camouflage on the back of a small sandpiper, for example, that you find in a wetland or a beach environment here.
Yes.
But in this particular piece, you'll see there's a characteristic called spalting, which allows me to get the fungus type pattern or graphic through the wing. And these birds that I'm doing are a series of small wading birds that you find in wetland areas and along beaches.
Well, I do hope this video series is of interest to people today, and please do add a comment if anything sparks a memory or experience. Thanks for watching.